Now, to start off this video, I'd like to say that depending on what YouTube decides to show you guys as the title and thumbnail of this video, you might be either confused, you might be either outraged, you might be curious. If you got the title saying the biggest question Snezhnaya needs to answer or my expectations in the Genshin Impact 7.0 Archon quest, then you'd probably just be curious and interested in the topics that I have to discuss and of course see what I expect Snezhnaya to have come 7.0 and onwards. If you got the title Genshin Impact's last chance to get it all right, then well, trust me, it's not really a negative title, and I'll explain why right here. We have spent the last 6 years establishing the big three factions with the Fatui, the Abyss, and the Heavenly Principles, and Snezhnaya has been the pinnacle of it all, right? It's been the final leg of our journey. It's now here. We're finally at that point. We're finally at the final leg of our journey, and so it being that final region before the big finale happens, it has to all collide together correctly to make sure things are done right. So in this video, what I wanted to do with these specific topics is to effectively go over what we know in short detail and then explain and discuss what I personally expect to see in 7.0's Archon quest and potentially beyond. Furthermore, I decided to make this video today because tomorrow, just to warn you guys as well, is we're gonna get the preload for 7.0, right? And that's where we'll probably see a lot of data mines happening, a lot of leaks happening potentially, where people will, just spoil the entire story for what's to come in 7.0. So to avoid any of that and to avoid that influencing my own personal opinions in case I see any of that, I wanted to make this video today just so that my predictions are out there before any of this happens, right? Now, if you guys going to enjoy this video as well, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff. Of course, if you want to see more lore content and all of that, that would be definitely appreciated. It helps me out in the algorithm and also gets you guys notified as to when I upload a video as well. And also on top of all of that, if you guys want to leave your own predictions and your own expectations from 7.0 or onwards, leave it in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below, and I usually read through all of them. Maybe I don't respond to every single one, but I definitely do read through all of them, and I do respond to some of them at least when I get the opportunity to do so.
I almost doubt whether it was ever true at all. The illusion of warmth to those freezing to death. Death is not the enemy of love. The real enemy is the blessings given by deluded gods.
Now, the big one to discuss and talk about is the Tsaritsa's goals. For a very long time, we've known that the objective of the Tsaritsa is to bring together the Gnosis for some usage. We still don't know how she's going to use it or why exactly she's bringing them together to use them. Obviously, we know the overarching goal, however, is to obviously use them to challenge the Heavenly Principles and overthrow them. Embittered and hardened after the events of the Cataclysm, to which we now know had a more personal connection to her as the developers revealed it in a recent stream with her relationship with the Khaenri'ahs and everything, my expectations for her going into Snezhnaya, however, at the start of 7.0 is that I don't think she's actually going to have a big physical presence. More specifically, I don't think we'll actually see her in any way, shape or form that much. I do think we will see a little bit of her based on, of course, the 7.0 trailers and stuff, but I do think it'll be like just a 1 or 2 scenes at most, and I think it'll only happen after we face Renova. That's my prediction. I don't think we're gonna see her otherwise. It's very common for them to do this trope, you could say, where the Archon doesn't play a very active role at the very beginning of the region, right? You look back on Sumerun, Fontaine, on Natlan. While they did partake in certain events and they did come to us in some way, shape or form and obviously speak to us here and there, they were never really active in that sense. They were obviously there playing a role, but they were never active. I think we're gonna see the rest of Snezhnaya play a bigger role in version 7.0, and it makes sense, right, with how it's to set up the region, it's to set up obviously the people, the place, obviously get the plot lines going. I think it's way more important to get the rest of the cast built up as well before jumping straight to the Tsaritsa. I think it makes a lot of sense. To look forward, to look beyond version 7.0, I do expect her link to the Third Descender to be extremely important and vital to the story. like I've been predicting for the last couple of weeks, especially after the events of the special program, and as many others have been predicting as well. I do think that they will be set up as lovers and the origin of Khaenri'ah as a whole. So that is going to be a very vital point of the story, and I think that's going to come into fruition a lot more in version 7.2, 7.3 potentially. We also need to learn more about the Harbingers themselves. More particularly, I think we need to learn more about Pulcinella and Pantalone, who we know very little of as they've only been more present recently. By extension, we also need to learn more about their involvement and pushing off Project Stuja. Having seen the previews and trailers, Pulcinella and Pantalone are strong advocates of Project Stuja and seem to be at the forefront of the decision making, including placing Arlecchino and her House of Hearth at the forefront of this project to actively support it. We've also been given information, enough information I should say, through Arlecchino, Colombina and Sandrone to know that neither of them are quite as straightforward as their public images suggest. In fact, I mean, you can tell with Pantalone especially, right, with how we've seen him behave and act, of course, alongside Dottore in that last act of, Sumeru, Not Cry, truth amongst the pages of Purana. During that Archon quest, we've seen how Pantalone acts, so we know that it's not all goody two-shoes in his case either, right? So in the case of Pulcinella and Pantalone, I expect that they will be our major plot points during the events of version 7.0 as we learn more about Snezhnaya itself and Project Stuja. And they will probably be the Harbingers we maybe not interact the most with, but the Harbingers that we have to deal with the most, I would say. In regards to Project Stuja, my expectation is that 7.0 will give us most of the answers that we need. I expect that the words Misteltein will be explained and we will be told about it in more detail. My prediction for that is that, like a lot of people have been suggesting, is that it will be linked to Capitano, aka Thrain, because the word itself has far too many real-world links to the mythological Thrain that we know about to ignore it. Obviously, it's not something that we should take for granted or guarantee, but with how often Hoyo loves to connect and utilize mythological stories in their games, I think this is one that's going to be very difficult to ignore. I think there will be a big connection to Capitano with Project Stuja. Project Stuja has also been a very divisive topic in Snezhnaya, and by the trailers it seems that the parliament of the region and its people are rising against it, indicating that there will be some form of division that we will be addressing as well, and I expect that to be a leading issue that we might see in more detail through the meeting point quests through the likes of Alyosha. Furthermore, the traveler may go to Snezhnaya thinking that overall, even with their differences, the Fatui might be united when it comes to Project Stuja, but realize fairly early on that it is not the case and that they aren't even united when it comes to what will actually help the nation. It could very well end up in 7.0 that towards the end, in total, the traveler realizes that Project Stuja is not even necessarily for the people of Snezhnaya or the Tsaritsa, but it's mainly to be utilized for each Harbinger's hopes and dreams, specifically I would say in this case Pulcinella and Pantalone's dreams of what the future of Snezhnaya will look like. I will also add that they could explain in 7.0 what Project Stuja is doing, but it doesn't necessarily have to reveal its ultimate purpose, although I will say I would love it if it is going to be used as a strong cliffhanger to end on what Project Stuja is. I think that would be fantastic, like explaining what is the ultimate purpose of Project Stuja. That would be bloody brilliant. The Gnosis are a critical part of Snezhnaya's story. As we know, the Tsaritsa has 6 of the 7 Gnosis, and the last one, the Pyro Gnosis, is either missing completely in terms of the fact that either somebody has it beyond Tevat's perceived reality, or it is actually just completely destroyed. It's an answer we don't have as of yet. When it comes to the Archon quest in 7.0, I don't think it'll play as big of a role as some might think. You know, throughout the previews of Snezhnaya leading into obviously the release, we had the trailers, you know, showing the chessboard with the Gnosis. Then we've had the web event recently going over all the Gnosis that have been collected. I still don't think it's going to play a major role in 7.0 necessarily. I think there will be a couple of mentions of it, especially as we get Renova into frame and Piero comes in and all of that sort of jazz. But I generally think that similar to the Tsaritsa, the Gnosis and its actual usage will be done and explained in later Archon quests, especially as we need to get a better understanding of also what is the situation with the Pyro Gnosis. There are simply too many unanswered questions regarding the Gnosis, and as the story continues to bring in the Descender, the motive behind collecting them, and their final usage in the Tsaritsa's plans, there's payoff to come, but I just don't think it's in 7.0. And speaking of the Pyro Gnosis' location, I made a video actually going over its possible location and theories on where it could be, so go check it out if you are more interested in that mystery. As the developer stated in the stream so casually, Khaenri'ah is going to play an integral role, especially as the Khaenri'ahs are the Tsaritsa's descendants, and so the Tsaritsa's story is going to have an extremely personal connection to the nation and its people. I do expect us to get more information about Khaenri'ah as a nation and its connection to the likes of Snezhnaya and its people, especially because of the links it has to obviously the Tsaritsa, but also not only the Tsaritsa, but characters like Piero and of course the number one Harbinger, Capitano, having such a strong presence in the nation. Not to mention, we've seen that already thanks to the events of the Cataclysm clearly, that alchemy has been banned, of course, like I said, because of the fallout. So I would be very curious to see as to what else has been affected, right? What is in store for us when it comes to things that were maybe lifted from Khaenri'ah, either the good things or the bad things, thanks to these characters, and how it's been implemented into the Snezhnaya way of living, if it has been implemented into the way of living in Snezhnaya. While I don't think it'll be the focus of 7.0, I think as we get deeper into the Archon quests and with the presence of potentially Rhine-daughter, a Khaenri'ah herself, mind you, and the one who effectively ignited the downfall of Khaenri'ah, it'll be very interesting to see how that dynamic will work between Rhine-daughter and of course the Tsaritsa, discussing of course the downfall of Khaenri'ah and obviously what is the future of Khaenri'ah as a whole, as we, you know, uncover more secrets, uncover more answers, and overall as we approach the final leg of our journey, of course.
Consider your position carefully. This might have passed for a coincidence the first time.
Alright, the other big one, Renova, is a critical character that, well, to be honest, I was not expecting to see this early in Snezhnaya. And the fact that she's already appearing in 7.0 raises some flags. I won't say if they're red or green flags, I'll just call them flags. Orange flag, we'll call it an orange flag. Based on the available information and from her appearance in Natlan, Renova is in a situation where she's in a case of self-pity. After especially she was punished by the Heavenly Principles for her actions in Natlan during the events of the Cataclysm, and obviously subsequently the fact that she has very little care for civilization. I think we've seen in God's Limit that she is more subservient to the Heavenly Principles than maybe she was before, with how she is behaving in terms of, you know, wanting to follow the rules set by the Heavenly Principles, questioning how Asmodee could so easily switch sides, right? And in that sort of situation, we can already see that, you know, she wants to obviously interfere with the Tsaritsa's plans by staying within the remit of the rules set by the Heavenly Principles. So, to be honest, to see her already partaking in actions against the Tsaritsa potentially in Snezhnaya, I think there's a couple of big reasons as to why she might be already interfering. The first, I think, is Project Stuja. The actions that might be taking place in Snezhnaya due to Project Stuja, you know, potentially, and this is my theory and prediction, the energy stored for Snezhnaya's people to survive and thrive and protect them, and redirecting that to something that could be utilized to overthrow the heavenly principles. I think obviously there is a case in which, you know, Renova would want to come and halt that. Another potential point is, of course, like I said earlier on with Project Stuja, with its link to Mistletoe and of course Capitano, allowing, you know, Snezhnaya to potentially take away Capitano from that throne and allow him to stand up. I don't think she'd allow that too easily, right? I do not think that she'd allow that too easily. Now, for my other expectation and prediction, I don't think she's the big villain of the patch cycle. No, I don't think so. I think she could be playing a role similar to Rerir, where she's the primary antagonist for the first few patches, but she'll probably fall away to the larger villain that will appear later on in the patch cycle. And you might be wondering, Gil, who's that bigger villain? I think it might be Rhine-Daughter, you know? The fact that she was just teased ever so slightly at the end of the Transcendence trailer, along with playing the chess game with the Gnosis on, with the Tsaritsa, I think, you know, alongside her reputation and connections, Rhine-Daughter is like, I feel personally, I think she is the big villain of the patch cycle, low-key. And if you guys haven't watched my Pyronosis theory video, I have some theories regarding Rhine-Daughter and her having the Pyronosis as well. So there could be something there. There could be something there. Frankly speaking, Paimon's backstory and mystery was not something I thought might get revealed in Snezhnaya. With the possibilities endless for her, our little emergency food is in trouble as we enter Snezhnaya. With her feeling extremely sick and unwell, there could be a plethora of reasons as to what's happening to her. Now, it could be just something as simple as the cold weather that really negatively affecting her. Maybe Snezhnaya's environment is just so harsh that Paimon is affected much more severely than the Traveler or anybody else. But considering that we've already taken her through Dragonspine, where she was perfectly capable of surviving one of the more extreme conditions and most extreme environments we've seen in Teyvat, I'm not entirely convinced that temperature alone is the explanation. On the other hand, however, and the theory that I have linking to Paimon's unwellness or sickness, you could say, what if Snezhnaya, being the land forsaken by the gods, has some sort of field, you could say, right? Something that prevents divine beings from being there for extended periods of time. Remember, they've just said that the land has been forsaken by the gods. It may not just be a simple metaphor describing the relationship between the two. I think that would make a lot of sense, especially considering Paimon's, you know, theoretical backstory, right? The one that everybody is theorizing might be the case, where she has to be some form of god, she has to be some form of shade or a part of the heavenly principles. It would fit in extremely well. You might be questioning then, how is Renova there? Remember, I said extended periods of time. We don't know how long Paimon has been in Snezhnaya when she starts falling sick, right? If she's been there for an extended period of time, that is a problem. Remember, we saw it when they were on the train. It could be that they were on the train for a long period of time, or it must have been just as it started. We don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see when the story actually drops, but I'm gonna say that they were already there for an extended period of time. And then obviously as they were approaching Snezhnograd, she started falling a little bit sick. You could see her starting to breathe more heavily. So that's going to be something that'll be quite interesting to see if Renova starts feeling that as well during her fight with the Traveler as well. We'll have to wait and see on that front. And the other question I have is, how are they going to reveal Paimon's identity, and will they actually do it in 7.0? I don't think they'll do it in 7.0, but I do certainly believe that there will be a big hint or a piece of evidence that will allow us to work towards it into future going into future patches especially. And as to how, I think there will be a case in which where maybe we're in trouble and she comes and helps us. I think that's going to be the biggest one, personally, to me, especially as we've had in recent patches, you know, where we've had in Nordcry and in Sumeru with the Truth Amongst the Pages of Purana. There were situations where Paimon was questioning how much help she is to the traveler, right? So it makes sense if it all comes back in full circle and Paimon actually helps us out, right? I think that's going to be the case here. I am very, very excited to see where they take Paimon, because I think she is also one of the critical pieces of the puzzle as we enter that final leg of the journey, right?
If it's true that rules are curses.
We know in version 7.0, Odette, Alyosha, and Vodyanitsa are going to be the central focus, as they have meeting point questlines in the game as well, and generally they are the most promoted ones in the trailers, right? What I really hope to see is how we build a strong connection to not only these characters, but also how they explore the history of Snezhnaya and their current day-to-day lives. For me, that's what I really enjoyed about Nordcry in the meeting point quests, was how they gave us a great blend of not only just giving us the character stories, but also about where they lived. Natlan, which actually introduced this whole thing entirely for the first time with the tribe questlines and the tribe reputation, suffered from this a little bit, where it was more about the location than it was about the characters. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that because it was the first time they had done it, there were going to be niggling issues, but Nordcry is where they really perfected it, in my opinion, and handled it really well. So I hope to see the same here as well. With Odette, I really am expecting and hoping that the connection with La Senora isn't taken lightly. There needs to be a feeling of frustration and resentment from her towards the traveler especially, right? I mean, of course, there will be more so towards Raiden because she's the one who actually did it technically, but we were there. We actively partook in that equation. So of course, there's going to be some resentment there, right? And I hope that's not just done and dusted with in 2 minutes of meeting her, right? I really hope it stays there for a duration of time. It can reduce, it can deteriorate over time, and that's fine. Obviously, as events happen and as we enter combat with one another or whatever it may be, and we help each other during the quest lines, it will reduce. But initially there has to be something there, and that is very, very important. With Alyosha, based on the little that we know, I hope that as a hunter we learn through him about what it takes to survive in Snezhnaya's harsh winters and how difficult it truly is. It'll be fascinating to see the more common life in Snezhnaya away from Snezhnograd, and give us a completely different look at the region. Vodyanitsa similarly should give us a look at how the different upper class looks like, along with her own troubles that she might face as being a water imp, and the prima soprano at the Korolevsky Theater as well. I do not expect to see Noi just yet out of the remaining cast members alongside Danica and Vesna, the latter two obviously being the right hand and left hand of the Tsaritsa, and similar to the Tsaritsa what I said earlier on, I think we'll see limited physical appearances from them. Valerie, however, I do expect to see more of, especially as he might clash with the likes of Alyosha, showing the differences and segregation between the common and upper classes of Snezhnaya as well. I think that'll be a great plot point if they want to develop further on it.
Riri, thank goodness we...
Step forth and take your share.
You made it.
Not you too.
Hatred or grief, despair, desire. We all have our own.
Alright, the final major faction who I definitely expect to see in the patch cycle at some point is of course the Abyss. If there's one thing that's constant across every major nations or conquests we've been through, is that Celestia, the Fatui, and the Abyss have appeared in some way, shape, or form. The first two have already been accounted for in this patch cycle, of course, right, with the Tsaritsa and Fatui's obvious presence in Snezhnaya representing the Fatui itself, of course, and Renova's appearance, of course, representing Celestia's appearance, right? So there has to be the Abyss in some way, shape, or form playing some big role. That being said, though, again, I do not expect them to actually appear in 7.0. Maybe we'll get tidbits in the World Quest, but generally in the Archon Quest, I don't think they'll play a big role. However, come future patches, I do think they will. And the person to bring it all together, Daughter. We know of her connection to the Abyss, being a sinner, and of course through the art of Khaenri'ah, having released those monsters that basically led to the Cataclysm, right? They were linked to the Abyss as well. So given how many threads link back to her, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if her involvement also dragged the Abyss into the picture somehow. With Snezhnaya also being the final of the 7 major nations, I do think we could also see an appearance from the Abyss sibling towards the end of the path cycle in possibly a Traveler Archon quest, giving us more of an indication as to what they want the Traveler to see before the final leg of the journey. As we are approaching the end of the story, and we're in the final nation out of the 7 major nations, and once we're done with Snezhnaya's Archon quest, the Traveler will need more information as to exactly what the sibling wants them to see from that point on, and where the story will take them, the next location they will take them. Of course, right now the prediction is Khaenri'ah, but you never know, right? We'll have to wait and see as to what Hoyoverse plans for the sibling and the Traveler. I'm very much looking forward to that, and that is my prediction for the Abyss. And there you guys have it. Those are my predictions and expectations from the 7.0 Archon quest. Now, of course, there are a couple of things that I said that are beyond the Archon quest of 7.0, but I do believe that it makes sense for me to kind of set my expectations so you guys are aware of what I'm predicting and expecting, and then we can kind of compare and see if I was right or close to being right when the Archon quest reactions and all that sort of stuff is done and dusted once it comes out on Wednesday. Now, like I said during the video, I think the primary thing that we're going to be seeing heavily in the 7.0 Archon quest is Project Stuja. I think a lot of the other stuff, the Gnosis, the Tsaritsa, her issues with the Heavenly Principles and everything, they'll be discussed probably a little bit, but I think a majority of it will be left for later Archon quests. I'll be honest and say that don't go in expecting everything to happen frame 1. They're going to build it up, especially because remember, Snezhnaya is still a new nation. Yes, we've learned so much about it over the last couple of years, but it's still a new nation. A lot of new characters are going to be coming into play. A lot of new environments are going to be coming into play. Some new plot points might be developed as well. So for all of that to just happen alongside everything else, I think it'll be too much. So I think it's good if they ease it in and start off with Project Stuja, because that is also something that we know is a very vital piece of planning effectively that the Tsaritsa is doing, and overlooking alongside the Harbingers to be able to do something to the Heavenly Principles. We know that there is something planned there, so definitely very excited to see what's in store for us. And above all else, what I wanted to say at the end of this video was thank you, to be honest. Over the last few weeks, with all the videos I've uploaded, getting back into content creation, doing Genshin content, I wasn't sure if it was going to work or anything of that sort. And to be honest, seeing all the support I've seen in the theory videos and lore videos has been amazing, to be honest. Even in the general other content, while it's not matched the lore videos, I think generally as well, it's been pretty good considering, somebody who's not uploaded a video in like 8 months, YouTube kills the channel because of that. But just seeing the support, the likes, the comments, everything of that sort, it's been super appreciated. Yes, I've had some negative comments, but that's besides the point. You always get those. Overall, I'm just very happy to see all the positivity, all the excitement, of course, as well for what's to come in Snezhnaya, and I'm very much looking forward to it as well. We're only 3 days away from it, and I've got some plans, of course, right? I can't do a live stream reaction of the story, but I do have something planned there that can probably work as a substitute. So let's see how it pans out. Hopefully you guys like the idea, of course, when we get to it. But yes, I will say one more thing as well, and say that I am very much looking forward to Snezhnaya. We will be doing a live stream at some point this week. I'm fingers crossed hoping it'll be on Thursday or Friday, one of those 2 days. And of course, it won't be a reaction to the Archon quest, but we'll definitely do some explorations or combat events. We'll be building Odette, so there'll be something along those lines as well. But yeah, I appreciate all of you all for tuning into this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.